Hey, good afternoon and welcome to today's episode of the Elite Health and Wellness Show. This is where we talk about everything related to your health and wellness, from hormone replacement therapy, weight loss, to diets and exercise. My name's Clay, and I'm the owner and founder of EliteHealthOnline.com, and this is Makaylah Rivera from Texas Star Pharmacy. Makaylah is a cellular and molecular biologist with a degree from the University of Colorado, and she is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Texas Star Pharmacy. So welcome.
Thank you.
All right, today's episode, we're going to be talking about NAD. That's NAD positive, right? NAD plus.
Yes.
And so Kayla's going to get into the details of exactly what that is and talk to us. But it is all over the news. If you hadn't heard about it, I'm surprised because Tony Robbins, the Kardashians, everyone's talking about this. Joe Rogan, it's all over. So what's the hype?
Yes, so NAD, NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide.
That's why I left it to you. Yeah.
It's a long, really fun word. NAD works just fine. It's a really well-researched molecule, actually. And I'm happy you touched on how popular it is nowadays, because these big influencers, people who aren't even involved in, you know, chemistry or medicine in general are talking about it. And it's like, why? You know, what is it? So it's a very well-researched, well-studied molecule, essential to energy creation. So I think growing up in school or in, you know, even on the internet, you always hear this idea that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. This is true, but why? How? Well, that process is dependent on NAD. So NAD is involved in this process to create cellular energy, or what's called ATP. It's also involved in several other very intensely studied processes like glycolysis and the citric acid cycle. So anyone who has this, you know, this very strict biochem background hears, you know, the citric acid cycle, and they're like, oh, darn, because it's a very complex, you know, series of reactions. But these reactions are all dependent on this one molecule, NAD. So lately, as you said, you know, NAD's been touched on in the news, on TV shows, in books, on podcasts, and, you know, Joe Rogan even
As a product, it's a precursor to this.
Yes, so that's called NMN. But, you know, as you said, it's a precursor to NAD. NAD, you know, therapy really rose in popularity during COVID-19. And this is where I think that people were starting to realize that we really only got one body. You know, we only have our health and we only have one life. And this drive to really care for yourself, mind, body, soul, and investing in, you know, this preventative medicine started to become increasingly popular. You know, most people, especially nowadays, have become exposed to the adverse effects of, you know, degenerative diseases, whether it's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or other central nervous system problems, you know, or even things related to stimulants. People who have been exposed to these drugs that do affect you on a mental and cognitive level, and these are very common, and unfortunately very common in populations today. So do I think the hype is real? Absolutely. NAD is endogenously produced, which really means your body, this is in every single one of your cells. Right. You make it.
So it's something we had naturally,
the day
and it's declined as we age?
Yes. So
what age does that specifically, do we have data that shows when that starts to decline? Like, where's that sweet spot?
It's hard to say. The data is not extremely conclusive because it's hard to measure your levels of NAD. We can measure, you know, the reactions that it's involved in. So we do have, you know, like processes in your body that are dependent on NAD. Okay. And these processes consume NAD. In particular, you know, we do, going on that rate, there is a certain type of immune cell. It's called a CD38 T cell. Again, just a bunch of letters. It's a white blood cell, a lymphocyte, and it is a degrading enzyme of NAD. So it causes inflammation, and, you know, this idea of inflammaging that you hear. And
everyone's worried about inflammation now, particularly brain inflammation.
Brain inflammation, leading to, you know, poor quality of life as you get older, these neurodegenerative diseases. And we do see an age-dependent increase in this particular T cell. Well, it consumes NAD. Okay. So we would see adversely, obviously, as it consumes NAD. NAD would decrease with age. Okay. You know, which I think would lead us into who's it for? Like,
well, you mentioned several times neurodegenerative disease. I think everyone has a family member, a grandmother, someone who has been laying in a mental facility, memory care place for 10 years, and they're saying, that's no life. I don't want to do that. No, that's not how I want to spend my final 10 years.
No.
So yeah, it's a great segue to, who's this for? Like, who's the ideal patient? And then what could they expect? You talked about the science of what it does in the body and the mitochondria, but what's it going to physically do for us? And who's it for?
So these studies, surrounding NAD have particularly revolved around patients who have these neurodegenerative diseases, whether it's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or, other cognitive conditions, even substance abuse and addiction, and they require these, metabolic support. Has been our particular subset.
It's a sweet spot.
Yeah, there's also people who suffer from autoimmune conditions.
Okay.
So young, old, there's really no definitive population. What we can see from studies is that regardless of when you start it, younger does act as a preventative medicine.
Okay.
So
it could stay off disease if we start it young enough.
Yeah, research would suggest that, based on the very scientific mechanism of how NAD works. So if we want to get into the gritty, NAD interacts with a certain subset of genes in all of your cells. And for the people who are, really more involved in this research, these genes are called sirtuins. There are 7 of them. What they do is they require NAD in this enzymatic reaction to produce proteins. And these proteins will go to your DNA, and this DNA that has been damaged, whether it's through, oxidative damage or some other form of damage, and it will repair these genes. And I often get asked, if I stop taking NAD or if I don't have NAD, will it go back to its original state? No, these proteins fix in real time. So you're repairing this DNA damage, and it's not going to go away just because you stop taking NAD.
You're not going to lose the benefit.
No, but research and studies would suggest, that the earlier you start it, the more that you're proactively repairing.
Is it really any different than taking your vitamins, right? I mean, you need your vitamin D, you need your omegas. If you stop taking them, it doesn't mean you're going to lose everything you gained, but you're just not going to get the benefit going forward.
We're not pressing the restart button. Yeah. Every time that you take it, it's like the autosave docs on Google Docs now. Autosaves every time you modify the document, you're autosaved. It's not like you accidentally, you didn't accidentally shut the PlayStation off and now you lost all your progress and you have to start over from base 1.
Okay.
Nope, you're building up this beneficial effects of DNA repair. And I think people are like, DNA repair, like, what does that mean to me?
Right.
Because, research for these, implications of DNA is primarily, inflammaging, the idea of inflammaging and helping people return back to where they, like a reverse
on a
aging
cellular
process. Cellularly. Yes. So these are becoming, more increasingly popular, but working intracellularly, patients often wonder, like, what am I supposed to expect?
That's exactly it. We have patients all the time. The best medications are the ones that I'd say are the most popular ones that they know they took.
Yeah.
Took an Adderall and I know it. Or I took a thermogenic, my energy level went up, I suppressed my appetite.
Yeah.
But what are they going to experience? What would a patient like me or just a typical mom and dad out there who is into longevity, wants to stay off disease, but what's the practical today that I'm going to experience, or what would I see over a month, 2 months, 3 months on it?
Well, I'm happy you brought that up because, the studies and with this one, anecdotal reports are so important to these sorts of medicines because they're still being studied. Granted, this is not a novel molecule. This thing's been around for forever.
It was in your body.
Yeah, it's in your body the day you were born. It's in every single one of your cells. Not novel. Studies are still being conducted to determine, hey, how, where do these benefits come from? Because like you said, people don't do it and they're like, what the heck is this? One feedback that I have seen a lot, in reports is, hey, I feel like I took an Adderall. And I'm like, okay, but like, it's not a stimulant. It's the brain fog. It's the mental clarity. It's feeling like, oh yeah, I feel awake again. So it does, NAD does cross the blood-brain barrier. And while this is, we do see best results in infusions or injections.
Right.
Even people take precursors in an oral capsule. They do have it as a nasal spray.
Yeah, so let's pause there for a second because there is a lot of IV centers out there and you can go get a NAD infusion.
Yes.
You can do that, but it's hours. It's a big commitment, and what we've learned is that most patients can't stay with that kind of commitment to go to an IV center. So what we're offering at Elite Health Online and obtaining through you guys at Texas Star Pharmacy for our patients is an injection. It's a subcutaneous injection. Talk about that titration and how they can expect to get those same benefits that you get from an IV.
NAD is the side effect profile is very low. Yep. It doesn't have any drug interactions. It plays well with others. Mm-hmm. All these doses do require titration. So even in these studies where we were titrating for primarily, withdrawal or substance abuse, these cognitive disorders, they'll start at, 100 milligrams over the course of an hour. Well, they will do 5, 6, 7 sessions to titrate up to 1,000, 1,200 milligrams, but it's a 10 to 12 hour infusion.
Right.
You're an inpatient at that point.
Right.
And hey, that does have a cost associated to it.
Right.
There is an intramuscular and or a subcutaneous option as well for our patients who just don't have that time, but they still want this benefit.
It just takes weeks to get there.
Yeah, so you're going to you want to acclimate your body to this. Because as I said, there's not a high side effect profile. Studies and research have showed that some patients who do, give too much at one point in time might experience some chest pain, a little bit of like a
heart palpitation
feeling. So it's important to, hey, it's an energy producer. Let your body catch up. Get a little, become acclimated to this. And studies and research do corroborate that starting at a lower dose and setting a weekly maximum of, Texas Star personally suggests 60 milligrams subcutaneously once a week as a maximum. Knowing your body though, knowing like, hey, this was a little bit much. I didn't feel great.
Yeah, I started at 10, up to 15, 20, and then to 30.
Personally, myself, I do 30 milligrams intramuscularly twice a week.
Yep.
But
you didn't get there overnight.
No. And that's, a lot of that is working with your provider too. And I know Elite has several providers who, can communicate that and have that conversation with you and recognizing, hey, my body liked this, my body didn't like that. Work with your body and understand that, like, hey, this worked for me, this didn't work for me. But regardless, using NAD as a therapy preventatively, you will see these exacerbated over time.
Yeah.
And studies do, while trials are still being performed, studies do suggest that, as you continue to take NAD, what you're doing is you're continuing to fix and, aid your body in these cellular refreshing and
because what we learned in college, you and I both have the similar backgrounds from a clinical perspective in college, and that is with cancer is a aging disease. Our bodies stop knowing how to repair itself, and a cell gets out of balance, it gets off whack, and just goes out of control. This is actually resetting that DNA to be able to not allow cells to take off and run wild. Is that an accurate? I mean, for the layman, is that accurate?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are multiple forms of DNA damage.
Right.
And whether it's, you have the way your DNA is set up, I always remember Jurassic Park. Yeah, you have the double helix. You consider there are like 2 base pairs. If this is your DNA, it breaks.
Right.
Or you have 2 pieces together that aren't supposed to match. Or you're missing a piece. Well, your body has, mechanisms, polymerases, enzymes that are there to help correct that.
Right.
But nobody's perfect.
Right.
And every cell in your body isn't perfect either.
Right.
And so as these detrimental, effects, these get missed, you start to build up DNA damage. And, that does lead to cognitive decline, lack of energy, increase in the likelihood of cognitive diseases, cancer.
So this is as close as it gets to a true anti-aging medication. I mean, that word's out there. It's thrown around a lot. This is an age-reversing. We hear it all the time about creams and things that women are sold on TV to put on their face. Would you say this is the closest thing to an anti-aging or an age-reversing medication that exists today?
Yeah. So working through a pharmacy, we have to be tentative about
making claims.
And using that sort of terminology. But I can say that, the studies and like being performed by, the big boys and, other pieces of anecdotal evidence tie NAD to many benefits. So while it might not be directly, hey, I am 10 years younger than I was.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, my athletic performance has increased so much that I feel like I was 10 years younger.
Yep.
Or I have more manageable depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Or, my autoimmune disease has been managed much better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the effects of my substance abuse that I might have had in the past, or my disease progression has decreased at a rapid rate.
Mm-hmm.
Are those indicative of reverse aging? It's hard to say because the term is so up and down.
Mm-hmm.
That's really up to kind of the patient to decide, hey, does an increase in athletic performance, to me, would that mean reverse aging?
Well, it could.
It could.
If I get to my ideal body weight.
Yeah, if you get to your ideal body weight, and I feel like I was 10 years younger,
Yep.
Even
if it doesn't, we've talked about this on other episodes, even if it doesn't extend your life, what is life like from 60 to 70?
Yeah.
I know people right now that are in 50, and they can't do basic things they want to do. No. They can't go skiing. They can't hike. They can't do this. So, critical that they, it's really not about necessarily life extension as it is quality of life.
Well, and this is like we've talked about before in previous episodes, this is an endogenous molecule. So it's already here. You've already got it. You're supplementing your body with something to return it to a state of homeostasis.
Right.
You're returning it to, a state that it operated well at, where your DNA is feeling refreshed, where you feel young again. And hey, you're the youngest you'll ever be right now.
All right.
But is there anything wrong with taking something that research has shown could make you feel much younger?
Sure. Absolutely.
No.
So it's interesting, and I want you to talk about this for a second. We've touched on this in other episodes. It's like people will come to us. We're offering at Elite Health Online these advanced therapies, things that very safe, very well known, what it does. We have evidence, anecdotal and researched. But they'll say, well, I've never heard I go to my doctor every year for a physical, or I go every 6 months. I explain my signs and symptoms to him. How come he's never or she's never talked to me about NAD? Or some of these other ones. Why was I never put on semaglutide, for example, our last episode? Why are doctors not talking about NAD today? Why is it Elite Health Online talking about it and not your primary care doctor? Why would you walk into your primary care doctor and ask, and he might say, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking that. It's important to note that some of these therapies that we do talk about are not FDA approved. These are off-label uses of these compounds, these drugs. Is that to say that they're not beneficial?
Right.
No. Is that to say that it's a cure-all? Absolutely not. There are trials still being performed, but this is not something that your provider learned at medical school. This is something that the most of these patient populations are the patients who, and I'm sure you guys actually get a lot of these at Elite, but these patients who do their own research.
Yeah, no, patients come to us with often saying, I've heard about this, heard about that.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, I don't want to speak against Big Pharma, but I'm sure you could for a moment, because of what the industry you're in. Big Pharma doesn't want to push things like peptides and NAD because they've got billions of dollars invested in sick medications.
Yes.
So where do doctors get their information after college? This is a fact. There is required training for doctors, but most of the education they get is from sales reps. Sales reps from Big Pharma who come in and push a medication and educate them.
Yes.
That's where they're getting their training.
Yes.
And there's a lot of money for a doctor in some of these.
Yes. So,
not a lot of money in pharma.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy you touched on that. I don't have the resources to fight Big Pharma. I don't have the resources to tell them, hey, don't let you shouldn't recommend this for, I don't have those.
Right.
I thankfully do live, here in Dallas, Texas, where we have 6.5 million people in the metro area. It's more, we have the ability to give this opportunity to so many patients, and they're encouraged, to do their own research, of course. But here, in especially at Texas Star Pharmacy, where we have, 9 clinical pharmacists there who are always helping us build and find, the most relevant research and expand, the people that we have the ability to talk to and educate, because at the end of the day, it comes down to we're not trying to nickel and dime your patients. We're not trying to nickel and dime the providers. we really want to increase the accessibility of a medicine that's not well known, because it's not taught at medical school.
Nope.
But, requires people to do a little bit of legwork. I want to take that away so that you can still offer this for, even if it's not just, your patients, but for yourself.
Right.
I'm the guinea pig. I try everything. Because I think anecdotal evidence, especially, is one of the best ways to teach people.
Can't speak about it, right?
Right? So I always tell my providers, hey, even if you don't, know, you don't want to prescribe it right away, hey, I encourage you to try it. Because while it's not well known, while every provider didn't learn about it in a...
Well, they're well-intentioned. It's cattle call, right? Yeah. Most doctors' offices, come in, what are your symptoms? I've got 7 minutes with you. I'm going to prescribe a medication. They don't have time to sit here and talk about, frankly, NAD. Or you can go to a clinic in LA and pay, this doctor what they call concierge medicine, and you can spend an entire day there, and they'll spend 8 hours with you, but most people don't have that type of resource. That's where at Elite Health Online, what we're really trying to do is provide these therapies, in a way that's cost affordable, convenient, and easy for patients to access. But they may hear about things that they've never heard about before and say, and they should. I think that's a great question. Why have I never heard about this? Because your doctor was hired and is trained to have you come in, see him or her, get this, take this pill, go to the pharmacy, and you're on your way.
Yes.
And they're just not getting that deep into your longevity and your overall wellness. Yeah. It's really, I think Tony Robbins calls it this, and we both read Life Force. You have to be the CEO of your own health. No one's going to come out there. Doctors are not going to teach you about this. They're quick to prescribe a antidepressant, quick to prescribe a cholesterol medication, as opposed to taking time to let's really peel back the onion layers and figure out what's going on. And is there something like this that we could give you that would resolve that?
Yeah. Well, it's like we've talked about in some of our past podcasts before is I don't, and I know Elite in the same way, I don't have a desire to be palliative care. I don't want to treat the symptom. Right. And, I know you guys are the same way. We don't want to put you on 8 different maintenance medications when there are these other therapies that people have given reports that, hey, I felt, great on, my depression is world. Okay, well, we don't have to put you on an SRI. I'd much rather go that route, right? I'd wager that a lot of people would too. It's just getting this out there, and like Tony said, you got to be the CEO of your own health, your own life, and doing that. Finding providers too, especially who will take how you feel and how your body has been changing over time, because this is an age-related decrease, and taking that to heart and recognizing like, hey, this is in your best interest. This is what I would recommend because my rep came to me and gave me this data, gave me these studies, and I'm a part of a great organization that wants to help you. Then even if you might not have been aware of it, you have we finally have these providers and these increases in medicine that want to help you through that avenue instead.
Well, this has been amazing. I tell you, to the point of back to what Tony Robbins is talking about, this medication. Lots of people in Hollywood, they have no stake in it. It's not like they're getting paid to wear the brand. There's nothing in this. This is just because they have access to that. And what I want our folks to know is that you can get this at elitehealthonline.com. At elitehealthonline.com, we can take care of all your health and wellness needs. It's very easy. Just go up to the top of the website there and click on Speak with a Specialist if you'd like to learn more to see if you qualify for therapy, whether that be for hormone replacement therapy or for weight loss or just wellness and anti-aging. If you're ready to speak to a provider, then just click on Book Telehealth Appointment, and there we will bring up a calendar, allow you to pick the date and time that you want to have your consultation. This will be a 20-minute consultation on the phone, so you can do this while you're in the car, at the office, or at your kid's sports game. Our provider will call you at that designated time, and we have an on-time guarantee. If we're late to that call, we're going to give you $50 credit towards your medication cost, but trust us, we're not late. So we'll call you at the designated time, and that's something you can't count on in a doctor's office most of the time. And then we're going to ship medication at the close of that appointment. We're going to ship that medication directly to your doorstep within 72 hours. And then we're available for ongoing support to answer questions about your medication. You have Texas Star Pharmacy, which will answer questions about that. And we'll get you on your lifelong journey of wellness, weight loss, and living your best life. So thanks for being with us today. We look forward to providing you future episodes with other amazing advances in medicine. And Makaylah, again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.